We are all fans of music here. If you're watching this video, I assume that you are as well, whether it be as a casual listener or whether it be as an individual who has a massive collection and is just obsessed with the recorded arts. Music over the course of the past centuries has had many great moments, whether it be from classic symphonies to the advent of recorded media to the Beatles and other groups that have come and revolutionized the market. However, there have also been some bad things that have happened for music, whether it be to aim to control it or aim to denigrate the product to the point of where we are at today. So we're going to talk about 5 of the worst things that has ever happened to music. In fact, I consider these the 5 worst things that have happened to music. And we start with number 5. We start with the PMRC, the Parents Music Resource Center. This was spearheaded by Tipper Gore and a couple of other individuals in the 1980s, founding in 1985. And what they did was they were examining lyricism within rock music and other styles of music and noticed that there was a lot of objectionable lyricism in there, whether it be about sex, whether it be about drugs, whether it be about the occult. They examined a handful of songs and presented their findings, and this was something that spearheaded eventually a Senate hearing for porn music, as they called it, that included rebuttals from famous musicians such as Frank Zappa, Dee Snider, and John Denver. And what happened based around this was that music labels, record labels, eventually decided and really acquiesced to put parental advisory stickers or parental advisory indicators on the albums that contained these objectionable lyrics. In its earliest version, this was something that was a small rectangular bar on the back of albums, and this was one that was seen during the middle portion of the 1980s, but eventually it came to the small rectangle that we see either on the lower left or lower right-hand corner of albums today. Why is this a terrible thing? Well, for one, this is something that really has taken lyricism and put it under fire and placed it under fire, and this is something that is being used in order to try to control what children have access to, as though the lyricism in music is going to have that much of an effect on somebody's psyche that they're going to go out and do all of the things that the lyricism has told them to do. This is just as simple as saying that if a child plays Grand Theft Auto 5, he's going to go out, steal a car, run over somebody, shoot a hooker square in the face, and then decide to take a shit on them. This is something that's ridiculous based around the fact that it's using a lot of fear and using a lot of pre-manufactured guilt in order to really try to control this information, when in reality, all parents really needed to do is take a little bit more of a proactive course and explain to their children that all the things that they hear and all the things that they see are not suggestions to do. Number 4, technology. Technology has been seen as one of the greatest things that has really happened over the course of the past 20 to 30 years, with computers coming into every home and really showcasing the technology age at its finest. But for this specifically, we're talking about iPods, we're talking about ways in which these devices are transforming our world, and thus kind of ruining music in the way in which it's being delivered, in the way in which it's being kind of described. It's removing a lot of the different avenues that we had in order to hear the recorded media. Technology is something that also has boistered and caused a grandiose amount of improvement, but also disprovement, which we'll see later, whenever it comes to the ways and the methodologies in which we make music. Technology itself is not so much to blame for this, but it's more so the abuse of it by its users. However, it's still something that as technology has continued to manifest and as technology has continued to become more and more advanced, this is certainly something that has transcribed with the music itself becoming a lot more streamlined, a lot less unique, and something where a lot of bells and whistles of fanciness are trying to be used in order to boost what the musical value is, although ruining the soul that's behind it. This is something that in heavy metal, if you're one of my typical fans, you see this in the loudness wars. You see this in the fact that technology has boosted the volume potential for a lot of music, which has now caused a lot of bands and groups, especially in the middle part of the 2000s, try to use this to their advantage to make the loudest album possible, which is something that's not really that magnificent of an achievement to go for, but a lot of bands did this. A lot of the production sound was based around having a very heavy and a volume-centered sound. Based around the rest of that, it also gives end users the ability to pick and choose their music, which seems like a great idea until you realize that now this option is everywhere. It's something that has swathed the market, where phones and iPods now no longer have relevance. It's just an iPhone that you really need. There's phones, there's computers, it's everywhere, and we're going to get into that and why that's a problem a little later on. Number 3, American Idol and other talent shows that are just like it. I'm not just sticking here in America, I'm actually saying that this is a worldwide issue. The reason why this is a problem is because it takes a simple idea of a talent show, which actually caused a lot of artists to be discovered that we ended up loving. Either that or some form of talent search was concluded, and has streamlined it in cross-media, cross-multimedia this with the idea of television, the idea of ratings, which means that no longer are these shows based around who actually possesses the most talent, either that or who basically is able to really showcase the best sound. This is now based around a look. It is now based around a specific style of music that is going to be targeted, that is going to be wanted, that is going to be beloved. I'll speak with the American markets whenever it comes to this, where you're not going to see somebody win American Idol, for example, outside of the country music department, the pop music department, and somebody who decided to try to fuse a little bit of rock into it, such as Daughtry or Taylor Hicks, is not going to be one that lasts. It's not going to be one that's going to get the same big boost from the label itself. This is instead something that gears very much toward one side. If you're in a band, if you're in a group that has some superior talent, avoid these shows at all costs. If you're a rapper, good luck. You might get yourself discovered by being on television, but you're sure as hell not going to get it through them. This is something that's become pre-manufactured garbage that has basically polluted the world with thinking that this is the only thing that matters. And this is something that within the past 15 years, if you notice, has helped pop music continue its meteoric rise back, and we're talking bubblegum pop. We're not talking pop from, say, 40 to 50 years ago. We're not talking about soul music. We're not talking about the Beatles. Not everybody's trying out there to make the next Justin Timberlake-styled album, okay, that has a little bit of that neo-soul feel to it, that has a little bit of that explorative feel to it. This is cookie-cutter, carbon copy crap. And this is something that has been caused by all of these mediocre shows displaying talent as this and that, and we are now, as a culture, at least a high percentage of us, embraced simplicity and embraced mediocrity. And that's terrible for music. That's something that really restricts music in the fact that music is an extremely expansive, luscious, basic gold mine where you can go and do as you please and try what you want. And that's not happening. Speaking of mediocrity, number 2 is Autotune. Once again, something that's fairly recent. Once again, something that's helping pollute the music of today is Autotune. A simple idea which was designed to make sure that somebody has perfect pitch is now something that is being used and abused to death. And it's being done so that way everything sounds perfect and polished, even though there is a noticeable difference in what a natural voice sounds like. There's a noticeable difference in what an Autotune voice sounds like. Consider some of the artists that have made a living based off of Autotune. Consider the artists that actually make their career based around this within the past 10 to 15 years, and consider then the folks that are having Autotune placed inside their music based around them unable to hit a note or whatever it may be. It's something that is destroying the natural properties of music. Music is not meant to be an avenue of perfection. This is not meant to be an art that is 100% clean and crisp and beautiful. This is something that's supposed to be rough-edged. It's something that's supposed to have some mix-ups, some flub-ups. It's supposed to have little caveats and strange little devices within it in order to really make somebody wonder why it's there, or, oh, look, I think I noticed a screw-up, or this or that. That gives it character. It fuels the obsession. It fuels the absolute desire and love the collectability. It fuels so many different things that have those imperfections there. Have you ever listened to a symphony and wondered why something sounds just a little bit off? Do you ever wonder if maybe that's the way it's supposed to be, or maybe just somebody in the fucking horn row decided to fuck up? Ever thought about that? I've thought about that all the time. I've been to plenty of shows where there have been mistakes made. We're human beings, ladies and gentlemen. This shit is not meant to be perfect because it removes the humanity, it removes the soul. Fuck the message at that stage of the game. You might as well just take that record and throw it straight in the garbage. The fact that this is something that's poisoning music here within the past 10 to 15 years is terrible. Principally because now everything has to have that gloss. Everything has to have that glow. It is no longer an art form that gets its hands dirty. Unless, of course, the hands being dirty is making that money or getting that pussy. Or if you're a country artist, playing in mud. But the worst thing that has probably happened to music is also probably one of the best things that has happened for all of humanity, and also one of the worst things that's ever happened for humanity. Best and worst. That is the theme of number one, because number one is the internet. The internet is something that should have made music the all-encompassing love of the universe. Through the internet, you can now get in touch with your artists through their fan pages, through their fan clubs. You can now order basically anything that you want. You were no longer restricted to what was in your area. You were no longer restricted to what your local record store had. The world was now your playground. Your ancestors before you used mail order. They used all sorts of different devices, which could easily be lost in the mail, and you lose your money, or perhaps the order would get corrupted, or there would be something that would go wrong. The CD would come, or the record would come, and it'd be all cracked or whatever, and whatever it may be. Through the internet, this is all something that could be handled, and it's something where instantly we could provide feedback. But instead, what we got was the advent of downloading. What we got was the advent of sharing. We got the advent of people that no longer cared about going out to record stores and buying the music. What we got is now people that are more concerned about going to a show. That way they could hold up their camera phone and get a good shot of the lead singer during their hit song so they could post it to YouTube and maybe get a couple of bucks based off of AdSense. And what we're getting now is a bunch of music fans bickering about this and that and not giving two damns about the actual product itself. This is instead something where 15 years after the whole Napster debacle, the whole entire problem is still present. Before Napster, before 2000, this was something where music was going through a golden age. It's almost like their roaring 20s. The 1990s provided more sales of music than any other decade in history. And by the 2000s, it had plummeted to the point where it was almost unfucking recognizable. It was almost as though there was a mass exodus from all of the people in America and they decided to go elsewhere. And now it's something where in order to get a number one hit, you don't even or a number one album rather, you don't even necessarily have to hit 100,000 units sold your first week. It's instead something where the mediocrity of the numbers has even showcased itself, and it's based around the ease of access. It's based around the ease of access, based around the internet, based around iPods and iTunes, based around the ease of access by downloading the one track that you want to your phone, and that's all the more you want to fucking pay for. It's something where music itself has now denigrated the fan to the point where they no longer care about the entire body of work by their artists. Now, we have a singles culture that is hopefully reaching its end, considering the resurgence of vinyl records here in 2015, 2014, and really just caused a cultural collapse where now it became all about me, 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 and less about the collective, less about the whole. It's to the point now where bands are starting to manufacture a lot of their sales based around merchandise and based around concerts alone, not really having the record sales even factor in because they know it's not going to make up a lot of their gross profit margin. This is now something where they have to go fund me and crowdfund their next album. Either that or there might not be a next album. There might not be another new record. There's bands that are rising from the ashes like phoenixes to do the same thing, to record some more media, but it's not going to reach the same number of people. It's now something where based around all of this, the budgeting is different, and now we have just a handful of individuals that are way too rich. Tidal, I'm looking at you. Jay-Z, Beyonce, Kanye West, you bunch of fucks, I'm looking at you. And there's nothing that's being done for the other people on the other side. Where all the people have the money, where all the people have the funding, where they all have the distribution, they're able to pump it full of their product or they're able to support only who they want. We have entered, thanks to the internet, one of the worst economic ages for music, even though it should be the greatest. It's now to the point where everybody is an artist, which means whenever everybody is an artist, who's going to buy your craft? Everybody having their opportunity to shine is a great thing. There have been some discoveries based around that. But are they discoveries that we wanted? Justin Bieber, I'm looking at you. But at the same time, there are plenty of individuals that have been able to showcase their talent, such as 10-second songs on YouTube. But at the same time, you're not going to see 10-second songs, the album. And if you do, it's not going to sell 1 million records. I hate to say it. This is instead something that has denigrated music, culture, and society to an almost unbelievable level. And it's unbelievable that in a time whenever we could use a tool that should bring all of us together for the love and the power of music, it is seldom that that happens. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 5 horrible things that have happened to music. You might ask me, what can we do to change it? Well, it's very simple. Music started off as a very simple idea. You record some media onto a tape, or, well, back then it was much, much different than that, and it was placed on a small piece of wax that you could play on a phonograph. And now, of course, we have various other devices, but we're still going back to phonographs. I wonder why. Great sound, that's why. You purchase this music, and you listen to it. You love it. You become enraptured with it. It becomes part of you. That's what music is all about. What I would say to you is to support that idea. Support your local scenes if they are well worth it. Don't support them just because they're your local area or because your friends are in them. If they suck, tell them they suck. Don't support false music. Don't support artists that are plastic. Don't go with the herd. Go with what you love. Go with what you know. And constantly, constantly explore. Find new things. Try new things. Do not be pigeonholed into just one thing. My name is CoverKillerNation. I thank you and good night.